Hey everyone, I'm Hank.
I'm Kate.
And today we are building an app with JavaFX and SceneBuilder.
Woo!
So today, what are we building, Kate?
We're gonna build a magic 8-ball because people have questions, so let's give some answers.
Yeah, so we're gonna build an app that is just a simple, like a magic 8-ball, that there's a button that you can imagine you shake a magic 8-ball and then it gives you a random answer.
Awesome.
Alright, so in order to build our Magic 8-Ball app, we're going to be using JavaFX, which is just a library that we've added to our project that helps us build GUIs, or graphic user interfaces, just something pretty to look at, to interact with your application, a lot easier. And so we're also going to be using this thing called SceneBuilder, which also helps us talk about what kind of GUI we want to create. So you all now have experience creating an emoji with JavaFX, but as you could see with emoji, you had, doing all of your graphics work with code, making a rectangle and setting the length of it and setting the X and Y position can get a little tedious. So SceneBuilder gives us ways of dragging and dropping elements and resizing them in a way more kind of like Photoshop or something like that we're used to. And then SceneBuilder generates an XML file, or FXML as a play on words with FX, that Eclipse reads in and then uses that file to generate the GUI that we see. So we've already written some code. We don't want to bore you with writing out everything that's necessary for this, but we're just going to talk through what we have so far, and this structure is very similar to the chatbot app that you're creating in problem set 5, but a little more slimmed down. Alright, so we're going to start out in app.java, which is where our main method is, if you'll notice. And all that's in our main method is this application.launch line. And we can say application.launch because if you'll notice at the top we have, it says that our class app extends application, and you don't really need to understand what that means yet. You'll learn all about that in 401, but someone else has written this, or JavaFX comes with this application class that we can kind of piggyback off of and start writing from there. So that gives us access to this start method down at the bottom, and whenever we click the green run button at the top, whatever's inside this start method will execute. And so all we have in the start method is we set up a new window. So now let's go into the window class and see what's going on. So because we set up a new window, everything in the constructor of the window class will run, and kind of all we have in this class is a constructor. And we have this weird try catch thing. Basically what's happening in this class is we're reading in that FXML file that we'll create in SceneBuilder and showing it on the screen. So you can see kind of like we're setting up a new file and like loading that file into FXML loader and making a stage and a scene and calling stage.show. And so all of this, you can read all about this in the JavaFX documentation if you want to learn more about it. But all this is doing is taking whatever is in the FXML file and showing it on the screen. So let's look inside our FXML file. And this looks really weird. This is not Java, this is XML. If you do anything with web development or HTML, this looks very similar to that. But this is just like a declarative, also called like a markup language, that is a way of saying, hey, I want a button here and a label here with this size and these fonts and everything. So when you edit things in SceneBuilder updates this FXML file, and that's how things get changed in your app. So just to recap, it's not super important that you completely understand all the intimate details of how all of this works, but it'll help you with problem set 5 if you have a general understanding, and if you plan on going on further in computer science, these are the kinds of patterns that you'll learn all about in creating more complex applications and software. So the view is the user interface. It's what the user views or sees. The controller is kind of like the brains of the application. So whenever something happens in a view, like someone clicks a button, it'll let the controller know that, and then you can handle it in the controller however you want. And the window is what brings these two things together.
Okay, so let's open up SceneBuilder and go inside and see how we're going to make this view. So everything we do here is going to be translated into that FXML file. So first of all, we're going to go in, and the first thing you do anytime is make an anchor pane. So if you think about it, you have to lay your foundation, and that's what our foundation is going to be. So now that we have our anchor pane, the next thing to do is it's usually good to make a label so we know when we look at it what it's supposed to be. So we're going to make a new label. You just drag and drop it in there, and then we're making a magic 8-ball, so we'll call it magic 8-ball. Great. Now that we have our label, you can change the size of it, make it look how you want, place it in the middle. That's always great. Awesome. So now that we have that, we're going to add a button, because when you have a magic 8-ball, all you do is shake it. So we're going to put a button in, and in the button, since we're shaking our ball, we're just going to have it be filled with the word shake. And remember, this was changing the appearance of it. Now we're going to go to the code tab so that we can say what is the FX ID. So that's going to be our instance variable, which is _button, that we declared at the top of our controller class. So remember, in our controller class, we made that method called shake, and that's the method that we want to be called when our button is pressed. It's our onAction method. And so in our SceneBuilder, under the code, we put on the onAction section shake. And so that's going to call that method. You don't need the parentheses, it just goes to your code and tries to find that method called shake and then executes it. So now that we have our SceneBuilder made, what we want it to look like, we need to save this in our file, in our folder where our Comp110 code is. So navigate to that folder on your computer and find the specific project you're working on and go to that source folder and then just save it there. We named it capital V view just because it's good to remember that your SceneBuilder is the view. It's what people are seeing. And then all you need to do is go back to Eclipse, either press F5 on the package or press refresh. And you should see the view.fxml pop up. So now if you press run, it's going to pop up, and if you press shake, it's going to say button pressed, because that's what we put in the shake method. Cool, so let's go ahead and add some different functionality to this shake method. So back in our controller, we're going to go ahead and make an instance variable called responses. That's going to be an array of responses that our magic 8-ball will give. So all we're doing, array of strings called responses, and we're going to initialize it with those brackets when the brackets are going to be filled with all the responses. And remember, when we do that, we don't need to give a size because instantly it's being filled. So now we have to find a way to get random responses every time we press the shake button. So in order to do that, we have to import the random class from Java. And then we're going to tell this class, it has some functions, we're going to ask it to return an integer between 0 and the length -1 of our array. And that integer is going to be the index from which we grab a response from our response array. So say this function were to return 5, we'd go to the 5th index of responses and return whatever is at that value. Great, and so we're going to press run now. Okay, is Carolina going to win the Final Four game against Oregon? That's our question.
Outlook good.
Outlook good, woo! Oops. Okay, so now we have it printing to our console what our response is to our question. But let's have our view updated with our new response. So we're going to go back into SceneBuilder and make a new label that, to start off, we'll have it be filled with ask me a question. Great, and then what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go back into our code and have an update when the press button is pressed. we need to make an ID for this label in our SceneBuilder app. So we're going to go into the code section of it and say answer for the ID. So back in our controller, we're going to declare a new label. It's capital L label because that's the type that's in SceneBuilder. And we're going to call it answer because that's what we put the ID as for in SceneBuilder. Then we're going to go into our shake class and we are going to say answer.setText, and we're going to fill that with the argument that is response. And so that means that it's going to take response and set it as the new text for that label. And remember to put that @fxml tag at the beginning or it's not going to work. You're going to get a null pointer exception. So if you ever get those kind of runtime exceptions, be sure to make sure you had those @fxmls. So let's see what happens when we run it. Awesome. So now our response is right here on the front of the screen.